LBSi's Advanced Manufacturing and Material Planning Module, or AMP, was developed to provide planning functionality in SAP Business One that is not included in the standard product. The AMP module fills in the gaps where SAP Business One's MRP is lacking. To understand how AMP functions, we first need to study the relevant fields on the item master that will be used for planning purposes. Let's navigate to an item master data record to go through the relevant fields. The first fields we will consider are the inactive and advanced fields. Just like with most functionality in SAP Business One, if an active or advanced is selected, planning is going to ignore the item. Let's look under the Purchasing Data tab. The preferred vendor is a relevant field used in the order recommendation screen, which we will cover more in depth in another video. In the future, planning will consider your units of measure and your unit of measure conversions if you use them. So if you purchase an item in meters, but you want to store it in feet, and you have the conversions set up on your purchasing tab, the system will consider your conversions. If you are placing a purchase order, the system will automatically do the conversions. And the same is true for the sales unit of measure on the Sales Data tab. So if you're looking at a sales order for data, the system will look at the conversion between your sales and inventory units of measure, or between your purchasing and sales unit of measure. These features are not currently available within AMP, but will be added in at a later date. On the Planning Data tab, the planning method is looked at. Your two choices are MRP or none. If you have it set to none, planning will totally bypass and ignore the item. Any item you want to be considered in planning must be set to MRP. And when you are adding a new item, standard SAP Business One will assign MRP as the default. Planning also looks at the procurement method, whether the item is buy or make. If the item is a buy item, it will be shown under the purchasing order recommendation portion of the order recommendation screen. If it is a make item, it will be shown on the production order portion. This can be overridden in cases where you can either buy or make the item. The order interval field is not looked at. The only thing that will happen with this field if you are using it is it will reduce the selection on the order recommendation screen. Your choices could be weekly, monthly, bi-weekly, etc. But this defeats the purpose of planning, since planning will tell you when you should place your purchase order, production order, transfer order, etc. The system does look at the order multiple field. A good way to understand this field is to consider you are purchasing eggs. When you go to the grocery store, generally you cannot buy a single egg. Rather, you have to purchase them by the dozen. This would be like having an order multiple of 12. So for example, in the case that you are short 2 eggs for a production order, the system will tell you to buy a dozen eggs if your order multiple is set to 12. The minimum order quantity is just that, the minimum quantity that you can order. With planning, the system is going to look at the combination of everything to make its recommendations. So for example, if you are short 1 egg for a production order, and you have an order multiple of 10, and a minimum order quantity of 50,000, the system will tell you to buy 50,000. The next field is lead time. The lead time is calendar days and not working days. You cannot change it to weeks or working days. It is just calendar days. So if I put 180 in the field, that is like saying roughly 6 months. Tolerance days is basically the value that you can use to offset the difference between the lead time. So if your tolerance day is 1, that means plus or minus 1 day. We generally recommend that you do not use this field. Also, it should be noted that for the SQL version of SAP Business One, if you have a decimal or integer field left blank, that means 0. So in this case, the tolerance days are 0. We are not really looking at anything on the Production Data tab for planning, and we are not looking at the Properties or Remarks tabs either. There are user-defined fields that are also relevant for planning, like the Planning Order Type field. The only reason you would use this field is if you had items that are purchase items, but instead of a purchase order, you would want to generate a purchase requisition or purchase request for quote. We will talk more about this in another video on the recommendation screen. Planning will look at yield percentage as well. This field is commonly used for items that you buy or make that perhaps you would need to buy or make more just to get the net result you are looking for. Maybe you need 100 castings and usually 90% of the castings you make are non-defective. So if you put 90% in this field, the system will tell you to manufacture 110 to get the 100 you need. The planner field should be used if you have multiple users that can create purchase orders and/or production orders. The reason is that you have the ability to tell each user what items they should be purchasing or creating production orders for. If you only had one person purchasing and one person creating the production orders, there would be no reason to use the planner field. Material planning forecasts can be set to weekly or monthly for items that you are going to use forecasts to determine customer demand. MRP will work a lot better if you use weekly forecasts, since you are getting the days down further than in a month. With monthly forecasts, you have to determine if it's the 1st, the 15th, the 30th of the month, etc., whereas weekly just tends to work better. The forecasting bill of material type field is used in planning to forecast for the parent on the bill of materials instead of just the individual items on the bill of materials. Choosing item group denotes that you are planning based on the item group level, meaning that you are planning these items for the entire group and not for a specific item. When using AMP, it is mandatory that you are managing your inventory by the warehouse. It should be noted that if you have two competing values for an item, one on the item level and another at the warehouse level, the value at the warehouse level will be considered and not the value at the item level. The values at the warehouse level will also supersede any values on the Planning Data tab in the Item Master. The value assigned to minimum inventory will be considered demand when calculating needed supplies and will be displayed on the order recommendation screen. Note that you can use either minimum inventory or safety stock, as they will function the same way, but you cannot use both, and you want to make sure you are consistent for all of your items. Max inventory defeats the purpose of planning, and so does not used. Minimum order quantity is displayed on the order recommendation screen, and you can think of it as the lowest quantity the vendor is willing to sell. It can also be considered the lowest quantity to be made if you manufactured the item. The order multiple is the same as we discussed before, but at the warehouse level. Source determines the means or method by which a particular warehouse will be supplied when it demands an item. If you specify make, production orders will be created to satisfy demand. If you specify buy, purchase orders or requisitions will be created to satisfy demand. And if you specify transfer, a transfer or transfer request will be created to satisfy the demand. For example, you might want your Mexico warehouse to transfer from the California warehouse, and for the California warehouse you might want them to purchase from a certain vendor. If everyone buys from the same vendor and no one gets a transfer from another warehouse, you would not use this field for this item at all. If you need to use the transfer option, the transfer from field is where you specify the warehouse code that you would be receiving the transfer from to satisfy your demand. Day supply is a common field in MRP, but it is often not understood in how it works. To give an example, let's assume that we are purchasing an item, part number 123, to make the example as easy to understand as possible. Let's assume we have nothing in inventory, no order multiple, no safety stock, nothing. Let's also assume our day supply is 15 days. Let's also say we need 2 of part number 123. The first time I need one of them is July 1st. The second time I need one is August 1st. It could be a sales order calling for this item, a forecast, a production order, etc. It does not make any difference. Since our day supply is 15, the system is going to tell you to buy 2 and get one of them in here by July 1st and one of them in here by August 1st. Now assume the same scenario, but our day supply is 60 days. The system is going to tell you to buy 2 and get them both in here for July 1st. Essentially, the system is going to consolidate your items based on the days supplied. So companies that want to keep their inventories low will keep the day supply low. And if you want to increase your day supply, your inventory levels will also increase. Lead time is the time it takes to get the item from your supply source. Let's say you transfer the item from warehouse 02. If it takes 2 weeks to get the item to warehouse 01, then you would put 14 days here. You do not want this field to be blank, because that tells the system your lead time is 0. So the system is going to tell you to purchase the item on the day you need it. The default vendor is used if you need to specify certain vendors for certain warehouses. Otherwise, there is no need for this field. LBSi's Advanced Manufacturing and Material Planning uses an array of fields on the Item Master data record specifically for planning purposes. Join us in future videos as we break down how LBSi's AMMP module can help you improve your existing SAP Business One planning functionality. Be sure to click the subscribe button and turn on post notifications so you never miss a new video. As an SAP Gold partner, LBSi can help you take full advantage of everything the system has to offer. To get in contact with us, visit our website at www.lbsi.com and navigate to the contact link. You can also email us at sales@lbsi.com for sales-related inquiries or SAP support@lbsi.com if you're an existing client in need of support assistance.